books could bring out people at 10 a.m. in Provincetown. One thing before I introduce our great authors today is that I'm a member of the advisory committee, is it called, or whatever, something or other. A couple of us are here. And we get all the fun things. We get to suggest authors. We get to read each other, the books of other people, authors that people have suggested, all the really fun parts of it. And then Nan and the rest of the library staff do the really hard work of making this book festival happen. They have to talk to each author, formally offer them, get them here, find them housing, which in this town is really crazy. So it really is a lot of work, and we very much appreciate all the wonderful things you do to make this happen. So thank you. So, our two authors. Edgar Gomez, they use all pronouns, is a Florida-born writer with roots in Nicaragua and Puerto Rico. A graduate of the University of California, Riverside's MFA program, their words have appeared in Poets and Writers, Narratively, Catapult, LitHub, The Rumpus, Electric Lit, and elsewhere, online and in print. Their memoir, High Risk Homosexual, was called A Breath of Fresh Air by the New York Times. They live in New York and Puerto Rico. Joe Okonkwo, debut novel Jazz Moon, won the Publishing Triangle's Edmund White Award for debut fiction and was a finalist for a Lambda Literary Award. His short stories have appeared in Volume 1, Brooklyn, Global City Review, The Piltdown Review, The New Engagement, StoryCorps, Love Stories from Africa, and Strength. His story Cleo was nominated for a Pushcart Prize. Joe serves as prose editor for Newtown Literary, and he edited Best Gay Stories 2017. His short story collection, Kiss the Scars on the Back of My Neck, won a silver medal from the Independent Book Publishers Award. So let's all welcome him.
Hi everyone, good morning. So the way we decided to work this out was I was going to read a little, then Joe's going to read a little, and then we're going to talk. It's cool. So yeah, I want to say thank you too. Thank you, Doug. Thank you, Nan. Thank you, Russ. Thank you, everybody who organized this festival. I usually don't get invited to a lot of really nice places. I get invited to read at bars, bookstores / bars. So to be here feels like such a privilege. I'm gonna read something not from my book and then something from my book. It's still a little early for me, so I kind of want to wake myself up, and this is what I read when I want to wake myself up. It's 2% scandalous, but it's not that bad. For a library, if there's children around, okay. So, we're in P-Town, so I want to read this short, I could call it a poem or something, called I Love Being Gay. And I wrote this because I often love to imagine what queer life will look like after the struggle, after the fight. I get a little, worn out, as I'm sure a lot of other people do, constantly talking about how hard it is and this and that. And so I just wanted to write something really celebratory. So I love being gay. Here it is. I love being gay. I love spending 20 minutes moisturizing. I love carrying my phone in my hand like a little coin purse. I love poppers. I love incense. I love drama. I love starting phone calls with girl and bitch. I love songs that are just one command, like dance, spoken over and over again by a mean Australian lady with cunty bangs. I love crossing my legs, tequila sunrises, and when the bartender calls me baby. I love when you can tell an animal is gay. I love misting my plants with a spritzer. I love drizzling syrup over dessert. I love fresh flowers on a windowsill. I love dead flowers in a dusty corner. I love the underwear section at Target. I love wigs. I love having a gold-plated Starbucks rewards card, but no dentist. I love becoming best friends with girls in line for the bathroom at the club. I love making out in the street after a date. I love when my boxers are longer than my shorts. I love the boots with the fur. I love animal print speedos. I love a waist cinch to the gods, wet gel curls. I love dips and stunts and twirls. I love when straight people don't know what I'm talking about. I love Janet Mock. I love Sylvia Rivera. I love the Golden Girls. I love Patti LaBelle and Mariah Carey's live performance of Got to Be Real. I love old straight women who hang out at gay bars. I love Miss Mary in Orlando, who kissed me on the lips on the dance floor to Shares Believe. I love Doña Marina in Queens, who whips her boobs out after 3 whiskey waters. I love all the gay cartoon characters I'm probably supposed to hate, like Mr. Burns, Big Gay Al, Roger, him, Velma, and Pleakley. I love Disney villains. I love playing video games as a girl character. I love Charlie's Angels Full Throttle. I live for a pregnant pause. I love Kevin Frett. I love Lil Nas X. I love when RuPaul stands at the head of the catwalk with one hand delicately resting over the other. I love everyone who works at Mac and Sephora. I love that crazy bitch Jonathan, even though he's fucking crazy. I love the way straight people play us in movies, even though they make us seem fucking crazy. I love watching gay people fighting. Okay, here's the scandalous part. I love Dick. I love the man sitting across from me on the train and would let him spit on my contact lenses before putting them on if he wanted. I love the apps and knowing there's a 5'9" verse bottom 250 feet away. I love DL Dominican Trade. I love the pissed off Puerto Rican receptionist at the STD clinic. I love the free condom bucket next to the bathroom at every gay bar. I love bathhouses. I love cruising. I love not having to hang out with certain relatives who, aside from being homophobic, are just boring. I love my mom. I love my gay friends. I want all this on a t-shirt, under a big I and a heart, so I can wear it around like loving being gay is a place I've been. That way, I can remember it when I'm not there. All right, so now I'm going to read something from my book, High Risk Homosexual. I'll read a shorter thing. So this is from chapter 3 called Straight Acting, or called Mama's Boy. And all you need to know is that I'm 17 years old. I'm feeling like a freak at school because I'm one of the few out queer people, and my best friend, who was like my gay mentor, just moved to New York. And I was basically on the phone with him and I was like, yeah, I'm like really, I feel like a freak. And I don't know what to do. And he was like, oh, just like go out this weekend. It's gay pride, forget all these people, do you, and you have fun. And like in 10 years, like you're gonna forget all these people, so it's not even gonna matter. Which was a lie because I wrote about it. But yeah, so I went to gay pride in Orlando. Yeah, this is gonna cut back and forth between pride and my first coming out to my mom. It's like my coming out story is kind of a two-parter. I came out to her and I think she forgot, and so I had to tell her again. The second time is way more dramatic than this time. So here goes. It was gay pride weekend. So that Saturday, I rode the city bus to the parade with a flask of guava wine, the only alcohol we had left at home, shoved into my underwear. It wasn't my first pride, but it was my first one alone. I wondered if the other people seated around me on the bus had any idea where I was going in my little denim shorts and tank top. Once there, I followed the sound of upbeat music to a street overflowing with gay people. I found a spot among them and watched the trans elders marching with their fists in the air, the go-go boys hurling condoms from the tops of floats, the dykes on bikes pressing on the horns of their motorcycles, leaving in their wake a road littered with beads and confetti. I tried to match everyone's energy, but it felt awkward to smile and scream by myself, like I was crashing a party and they all knew. I wasn't even sure what I was supposed to be proud of. The closest thing was this. The year before, I came out to my mom. We'd been at the Clinique counter inside Saks Fifth Avenue, waiting to ask an employee about a coupon we'd gotten in the mail. There was no good reason for me to do it then, just like there hadn't been one when I told my ex-boyfriend Angel. I suppose I just wanted to get it over with, and my gut told me she wouldn't make a scene around so many rich white ladies. I have to tell you something, I said, laying it out as gently as if I were dropping the words into hot oil. I think I like boys. I think I'm gay. Okay, Mom said, and then she put on her sunglasses, I guess to cry. I was getting ready for her to grab my arm and pull me out of the store when a sales girl came up to us and offered her some free samples. Mom smiled and acted as if nothing had just happened. Maybe I should have thought it was strange how quickly the moment passed, and a part of me did. But mostly I was focused on the fact that seconds later, she'd moved on and was buying me a 3-month supply of face wash. That's it? I thought. It was such a nice idea that I let myself believe it. She really doesn't care. It wasn't until we made it back home and I heard her sobbing on the phone with an aunt that I understood how badly I'd hurt her. I expected my aunt would talk some sense into her, and when she finished the call, she'd come into my room and kick me out or whoop me. But she didn't. She didn't do a thing. I was so grateful, I got it in my head that I could repay her for her acceptance by proving that my being gay didn't mean I was going to change. If she waited a little, I'd show her I was practically still straight. Within a week, I hung up a Miami Dolphins football calendar in my room, threw out all my rom-coms, packed my flamboyant clothes into a suitcase and hid it under my bed. In retrospect, this must have only confused her. It confused me. After all, what was the point of coming out if I was just going to recloset myself? Standing on the side of the street at Pride, surrounded by queers who seemed way more fearless than I could ever be, I felt like a poser. I ducked inside a porta potty and swallowed a flask of guava wine in one gulp, gagging at the toilet stench flooding my nostrils. The graffiti-tagged walls were slimy with humidity, the space cramped and dark, but I was more comfortable in there than outside. It was easier to breathe with no one watching. When someone knocked on the door, I summoned the nerve to open it by promising myself I could leave in an hour. There was a strip of sidewalk nearby where businesses had set up booths selling rainbow sunglasses and giving free rapid HIV tests. I made my way over and tried looking available by standing near groups of strangers and laughing. Some of them, mainly older men wearing Western shirts tucked into Wranglers, played along. "Pride is so corporate now," they said. And, "Smile, what do you have to be sad about? When I was your age, whew." I accepted greedily their attention, the vodka cranberries and tequila sunrises they offered. They moved in closer, rubbed my chest through my clothes, squeezed my ass. "Where do you live?" They pulled me between their legs, slobbered on my neck. "How old are you?" "With my mom," I answered, wiping their spit off my skin. "Almost 18.
This is, I think, my third time participating in the Provincetown Book Festival. It's always wonderful to be back here, and it's always great to be back in Provincetown. So thank you, everyone, for being here so early on a Sunday morning. So I'm going to read 2 selections from my short story collection. This first story is called Skin, and I don't think you need any context. You just need to know that the narrator is going on his second date with someone he likes very much. My place, the next day. Ernie's coming. I'm fixing dinner. Baked chicken, fresh asparagus, shrimp. I would normally include rice or pasta, but Ernie has renounced carbs. I gut the shrimp and try to temper my hopes and coax them down from their moon-high altitude. This always happens when I meet a guy I like. I get too far ahead of myself too fast. So fast, I can't slow the momentum. So fast that when disappointment arrives, I'm unprotected. Wisely or stupidly, I always try again. I hope Ernie is different. I think he will be. I always think that. He's here. We hug as if it's been weeks since we last saw each other instead of 23 hours and 26 minutes. I pour wine. He takes a sip then sets his glass on the coffee table like a judge setting down a gavel. "I want to read your poetry," he says. "This very minute? This very minute." We go to the bedroom and sit at the computer, or rather, he sits and I kneel beside him, our arms spiraled around each other's shoulders. His eyebrows crease and uncrease as he reads. When he reaches the end of each poem, he kisses me. As he scrolls through the verses, I think, I'd like to live with this man one day. I put my head on his shoulder. That evolves to caressing and kissing. I thought we'd have dessert after dinner, but I don't fight this. Ernie is aggressive, which I like. He maneuvers me to the bed. We undress. I'm horrified at what I see. I expected a slender body, and it is, but with blobs of excess skin budding around his pecs and bubbling his midsection. It streams from his buttocks, droops down his back. The excess skin is wrinkly, loose, devoid of elasticity or tautness. I touch it. It's gelatinous and squishy. It pours off his body like lumpy dough poured from a bowl. I didn't expect a ripped body or six-pack abs or a high-definition chest, but I didn't expect this either. Half rough, half gentle, Ernie propels me onto my back. His hunger heightens each second, but my arousal is withered. To reignite it, I shut my eyes tight, and think about how wonderful he is, how sweet and smart and cute, how he loves books and jazz and my poetry. I squeeze my eyes tighter, as if the strain might reconfigure my sight, redesign my visual perception so that I'll like what I see when I open them again. I reopen them. I see his body. I can't do this. I stop him, take his face in both my hands. I look into his eyes. "I'm sorry," I say. Flustered, jarred, breathless, he looks at me as if he doesn't understand. I've interrupted treasure and he can't make sense of why. And then he gets it. His eyes don't shift. His face and body remain still, but a heart-sick air creeps up and envelops him. I feel it. If it had a temperature, it would freeze me. He gathers his clothes, slowly, dazed, and goes into the bathroom. He closes the door. I hear him crying. The sound is tender, just like the tender man whom I have hurt. I sit on my bed and wait. When he emerges, we don't speak. We head to the front door as if, because, there is no other option. I have butchered the possibility so ferociously alive only 40 minutes ago. Our wine glasses, still full, dawdle on the coffee table. The apartment is flush with the odor of baking chicken. The music has changed. Leontine Price singing the aria Visitarte from Tosca and her dusky, opulent soprano. Ernie leaves. Neither of us says goodbye. So this next piece is from a story also in the collection called "You Can't Do That to Gladys Bentley." Gladys Bentley was a real-life person. She was a real-life Harlem Renaissance icon. She was a blues singer and pianist, nightclub star back in the 1920s and 30s. She was known for wearing a white tux and top hat, and she dressed as a man, both in her professional life and in her private life. And she was known for taking lyrics of contemporary songs and making them dirty and flirting with the women in the audience. And some of the nightclubs that she was starring at, performing in, got shut down, raided by the police because she was violating obscenity laws with her nasty lyrics. She was also openly lesbian, which was something back in the 1920s. And she claimed to have married a white woman in an Atlantic City civil wedding ceremony. And so this story was kind of a dry run, because I'm writing a full-length novel based on Gladys Bentley. So this is You Can't Do That to Gladys Bentley. Gladys's fingers hopscotched across the piano keys, smashing out notes dunked in blues and dripping rhythm. It was her first song and her first set of the night. Her eyes hadn't yet adjusted to the dark club, the stage light's blinding glare. She couldn't see a thing outside the stage, but her explosive smile blazed as she winked and waved and nodded at folks in the crowd like she could see every face. They were too drunk to know any better. 8 years into this craze called Prohibition, and folks still acted like Saturday night was a bountiful Christmas with the ever-flowing, overflowing gift of bootleg liquor. Especially at clubs like the Clam House, where Gladys Bentley reigned, enthroned at the piano, moaning raunchy, sophisticated, bluesy jazz and jazzy blues from 10 p.m. till dawn. Her clothes were as sophisticated as her music. No gowns or feathers or horsehair wigs for her. No, sir. Gladys manned it up, all 250 pounds of her, in sparkling white tucks and tails, white shoes, and white shirt and bow tie, all of it crowned with a tall, cock-angled white top hat. Elegant white, dressing elegant brown. She was dapper, dashing, debonair. At heart, Gladys Alberta Bentley was a gentleman. Her backup band bumped and pumped, ornamenting Gladys's piano, lifting it till the melody soared. Gladys moaned out some lyrics. My brown bowl's full of berries, they're ripe and juicy sweet. My brown bowl's full of berries, they're ripe and juicy sweet. I stick my fingers in my berries, the juice knocks me off my feet. Someone licked my juicy berries, Lord child, I had a fit. Someone licked my juicy berries, Lord child, I had a fit. When they said, I'll stop it, Gladys, I said, please, oh please, don't quit. Her eyes had adjusted now. The Clam House was packed, a cacophony of color. Whites up from downtown and Negroes down from Strivers Row and Sugar Hill. Men in suits and tuxes and chicks in flapper dresses with long strands of fringe drizzling off every inch. Negroes and whites mixed it up, drinking and breaking bread at the same tables. A Negro man fed broiled shrimp to a white woman, forking it into her buoyant mouth like feeding a child. A giddy group of whites and Negroes made toast upon toast with flutes of champagne like it was New Year's Eve. White-jacketed, black bow-tied waiters cavorted through the narrow spaces between the tables, noses high in the air, backside swinging, one hand carrying a tray, the other perched on a haughty hip. A pair of white queer men on the east side of the room caressed each other's hands. On the west side, a colored pair locked lips. A mixed pair frolicked at a table in the middle, white guy on colored guy's lap, colored guy's fingers sunk in his boyfriend's mouth. Mannish women, bull daggers, white and colored, cut loose in suits and ties. Their hair straightened, short-cropped, slicked back. Arms tossed around the backs of their chairs, legs spread as wide as an invitation. Negro drag queens and white drag queens held court in royal, breathtaking regalia made up like movie stars, styled wigs glistening, and those girls' gowns were more chic than anything on Fifth Avenue. The queen's curvaceous legs were crossed at the knee and swinging to the pulse of Gladys's piano. The Clam House, a rollicking black-white island oasis set back from a brutal mainland. It was protected, oh so thinly, by the inhabitants' madness for sex, their craving to cross boundaries, and their determination to desecrate taboos. and all of it galvanized by the inhibition-lowering magic of bootleg liquor. The place was packed all right. Every eye was glued to Miss Gladys Bentley. Of course, how could they not be glued to a 250-pound colored bull dagger smashing out blues? The spotlight made her smolder like a beacon in her all-white getup as she dished out bawdy blues. Got a deep hole in my floor. Come on, baby, don't you tease. Got a deep hole in my floor. Come on, baby, don't you tease. My hole is wet and muddy. Come on, baby, fill it, please. It was one of her naughtier songs. And that was saying something. The kind of Gladys Bentley tune that had got the Clam House raided in the past and would again. Gladys scanned the crowd. A couple of Negro stuffed shirts walked out, snooty faces painted with disgust. Good, Gladys thought, means I'd done my job. And she'd done her job when the queers hurled their heads so far back with laughter, their chairs nearly tipped over. And when the drag queens nodded their royal heads, Gladys sat up a little straighter on that piano bench, proud to have earned their sage approval. Most of the white folks reacted like white folks usually did, squealing like brats electrified by a delightful terror in a Halloween-haunted house. It's why they flocked to the Clam House, why they braved their way to Harlem, to be scandalized by the antics of wild and exotic Negroes. It was Gladys's duty to give them what they came for. It was her pleasure to provoke, offend, shake shit up, antagonize the stuffed shirts, challenge the highbrows who thought they'd seen and heard it all, disrespectfully let them know that there was no such thing. If you're good to me, baby, you can slide down my muddy hole. If you're good to me, baby, you can slide down my muddy hole. So stop clowning round, baby. Come send Gladys to her soul. She pummeled the piano in an extended interlude, a transformation from bawdy blues to rip-roaring swing, from tongue-in-cheek irreverence to jazz combustion. Gladys closed her eyes, whirled in the music, got fucking lost in it. Thank you.
Damn. And I thought mine was scandalous.
Well, yeah, this woman specialized in scandals. So.
Joe, I'm so happy to be here in conversation with you. I don't know if you remember this, but you are actually the first person to have ever paid me for my writing when I submitted a short story to Best Gay Stories. And that was like 6 years ago. It was $25. I think I still have that check. Because I don't know, I just prize it so much. So yeah, it's such an honor and feels like a full circle moment.
Actually, yeah, I do remember publishing that.
Yeah, sure. So maybe I'll start with the questions.
Okay.
Is that okay? Okay. So yeah, I guess I was talking to a friend recently about the kind of art that I like. And I was like, I don't like slow books. I love drama. I love fighting. I love scandal. Like, I want, to be titillated. And yeah, as I was reading your book, I was like fanning myself. As I was hearing you read right now, I was fanning myself. You brought the drama. And as a result of all the drama, I fell in love with all your characters. And after every story ended, I was like, oh, I need more. But I was glad that some of them do return towards the end of the book. I guess my first question is, how did you decide to make this a collection rather than several books? Because they all have so much to say.
Oh, well, I don't know. instead of several books. Well, I guess I love writing short stories. I love the art of short stories. I love short stories that are kind of a small mini, maybe micro novel. A writer I admire very much is Octavia Butler, great science fiction writer. And she said that she hated writing short stories because all of her stories were basically novels, wannabe novels. But every now and again she was able to do it. So I guess I love both, and I have ideas all the time, but they're usually not for novels, usually for short stories.
Yeah. I mean, because of the return to some of the earlier characters, I was like, this could easily be, a whole book, or a novel, not a short story collection.
I guess I like the idea of linked stories too. Seeing a character in one story and then seeing how they might develop over time, or how they would behave in a different situation in a different story, or seeing things from their point of view. Maybe in the earlier story you saw it from a different character's point of view. Now it's this other character's turn, and we all have our points of view, don't we? So.
Yeah, it was really satisfying to find out who these, because we see them as children in the beginning, and then cut to the future, they're adults now, and it's so satisfying to see who they turn out to be. And yeah, they're so rich in character for that reason, because early on it's just all of their, I guess, influences are established. Okay, second question has to do with, and I'm glad that you actually read these passages, both heavy with desire, and we're here to talk about memory and desire. So I recently read a craft essay by the writer Melissa Febos, she's a memoirist primarily, and the essay is on writing sex scenes. And she talks in this essay about how writing a sex scene isn't all that different than writing any other scene. What is different is our relationships to sex. And she says that, we live in a culture that likes to prescribe a lot of rules onto how we both talk about sex and then write about sex. Some of the rules are like, you can't use certain words, like you can't use pussy. You can't be melodramatic. You also can't be too sweet and tender. And so her essay goes on to talk about unrules, to sort of fix your way of thinking about sex before actually writing about sex, blah, blah, blah. But I'm curious, did you feel as you're writing all of the sex scenes in your book, and there are many sex scenes, and it's all kinds of sex. It's vengeful sex, it's also very sweet and tender sex, and it's angry sex, and it's just very, very complicated sex. Were there any things that you were maybe afraid to write about, any taboos? Did the taboos motivate you? Were there any rules where you're like, oh, I have to write it this way? Oh, maybe I should fight that instinct? Anything like that?
Well, I think it depends on the particular situation in the story. Sometimes it needs to be more graphic, and other times it needs to be more the sex is more kind of implied or suggested. I think it depends on the situation. Writing sex scenes, it's challenging though, because especially when you're writing gay sex scenes, because all kinds of things go through. When I was workshopping my first novel, I remember it was in the first few drafts, the sex was extremely graphic. I mean, just so graphic. I'm embarrassed, even in a group of gay men. I'm afraid I'm embarrassed to say, but and I was advised to tone it down. And there was a workshop participant, a heterosexual woman, who said, "I'm not sure if I'm asking you to tone it down because it's gay or just because it's simply too much." And then in the end, she decided it was just simply too much. And I guess I agreed with her, because I did tone it down to make it more acceptable, I guess, for a mainstream audience. But also because I think oftentimes sex is way too overemphasized in gay literature. and it all becomes about the big dick. It all becomes about the hot body, and so I feel like I want to kind of turn that on its ear a little bit. And I do think that when you're writing sex scenes, I think maybe less is more sometimes, and then sometimes not. So again, it depends on the particular situation in the book. I like the challenge of writing a sex scene. How do I make this different?
Yeah.
How do I make this unique? You know, because sex has been described 12 billion different times and ways. So.
Yeah. I'm just imagining you like, where do you write? I'm curious about that as well, because I'm trying to imagine where you would be writing these sex scenes. A lot of times I write in like Starbucks, and sometimes I'm like, oh my god, I hope nobody's looking at this.
In my house, just at my table.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm actually curious about something you said about the difference between writing straight sex and gay sex. Do you think that there's like different rules that gay people must follow, or different things that we're thinking about when we're writing about sex?
I don't know if I've written a straight sex scene. I wouldn't know where to start.
Yes, you have.
I have?
Yes, there's one scene where, let's say a young boy is watching. Yes, in Gift Shop.
Oh no! In Polly, in Polly when he's watching his mother.
But it was still a kind of a queer sex scene, actually.
Yeah.
When I think about it.
Yeah, I think I just kind of winged it on that one. It's like I said, I have nowhere to. Aside from what I've seen on TV soap operas, I don't know where to start with a heterosexual sex scene. So, but I have a question for you. So, in your book, the idea of mentorship is very important. The idea of being mentored, advised, helped, by an older gay person or a simply more experienced gay person. And I'm wondering, in your writing life, because it seems like in the memoir, you really do receive a high level of support and mentorship from these gay mentors, and I wonder if you've received that kind of support in your writing from gay mentors.
Wow, that's a good question. I don't want to say no and then have somebody be like, "Wow, I published you first." But I genuinely, maybe not like, I don't have a lot of like men like having like conversations with me about publishing or anything like that. But maybe a form of mentorship is just seeing other queer writers older than me just like succeed and showing me that was possible, because I didn't even know that was possible for a long time. Especially when I started my MFA workshop, I feel like I knew I didn't know that many successful queer authors that were like really mainstream and were like making their money that way. Like some of the biggest ones were like David Sedaris and I think like Augustin Burroughs at the time. And yeah, because they were some of the few successful queer male authors, I tried to like change my voice to like sound like them, and in that way I was also like influenced. But yeah, I'm not David Sedaris, I'm not Augustin Burroughs. Their voices are completely different than mine. It wasn't until after grad school, actually, when I had a little bit more time to like read on my own, because the workshop I was in was really rigorous. It was like a book a week, plus write something, plus read your classmate stories. You don't really get to choose what you read. But I had to have like a self-education and find authors that I guess I align more closely to. And once I saw people like Janet Mock making it, people like Cy Jones and Ocean Vuong, and I started reading their works. I was like, oh my god, like they're not my mentors, but they feel like they're mentors in a way.
Yeah, they showed you that it was possible that a queer person of color could get their work out there. Mm-hmm. There's quite a big age difference between us. I came of age in the 90s, and I was working in a bookstore, and I remember every time I saw a book by a gay author, I grabbed it, because I felt like it was shocking to me that this was possible, that gay people were writing honestly about their experiences, and and they managed to get it out there in the world and published. So I grabbed everything, especially if it was a gay person of color. I really, so that's interesting how even all these years later, we're still wondering, is it possible to get our voices out there?
Yeah, it's not, and it's not that like we're not out here. It's just that oftentimes we don't get to be as like mainstream, and by not being mainstream, it makes the access harder because like the average, I don't know, kid in high school who needs to read a book by a queer person of color might not necessarily know our names, right? And so for me, that's why it's important to have like these like icons like Janet Mock and Ocean Vuong who are like so famous and recognizable. Right. You know.
So I write fiction, you write mostly memoir. So in writing fiction, you come up with a story, even if it's based on your personal experience. Well, let's say it is based on your personal experience, but you're able to kind of shield it and change things and kind of write it in such a way that the initial experience is a kind of a starting point, but not necessarily the ending point. Whereas in a memoir, you're writing straight from the heart, and there's no hiding. So what is that like? 'Cause I don't really write much nonfiction, a lot of memoir essays. So what is that like I mean, it's one thing to put a fiction story out there and, because it's all mostly made up, even if it's based partly on personal experience, but a memoir, that's all you. What is that like to put yourself out there like that?
It's not for the faint of heart. I'm a double Pisces, and we're in a Pisces moon right now. And so I really suck everybody's energy. And it is like very scary to expose myself so much because I'm like, oh, now I'm just receiving all kinds of like rando energy, But yeah, it's hard. I will say there was an element of hiding when I wrote this book, in that for various reasons, including one, I didn't think that it would really get published. It's a book called Homosexual. In grad school, but even before that, I'd had like the statistics about what books get published shoved down my throat enough, and it is very rarely a queer memoir, Central American, non-binary. It was just, I was like, and it's called Homosexual. I was like, okay, no. And that partly freed me to just like write whatever I wanted without the fear of like, oh, what's gonna happen? There was also the fact that I was like, even if it does get published, who's gonna hear about it? Like, it's not gonna like make a splash or anything like that. There's the fact that I write a lot about my family. I think that's one of the biggest concerns memoirs have. It's like, oh, how do I navigate my family? I was like, my family doesn't necessarily read that much. If they did read, it would be in Spanish, so I'm kind of good. And so for all those reasons, I felt like I could hide and I could just write like with as much freedom as possible. Cut to, the book gets published, and yeah, a bunch of people in my family read it, and it's like, actually they're really cool with it. I think a couple are pretending to have read it, which like, we can please keep up that lie. But my mom read it, I want to say like 5 months later. I also got my book deal, and then I didn't tell anybody in my family about it. Because I was just really mortified that my dream had come true, I guess. But I ended up telling her like 4 months later, and she read it, and yeah, she was actually really cool with it. There was only one thing that she was upset about, which is that, so she worked at Starbucks as a barista, and I mentioned that she used to steal coffee from Starbucks and bring it home. And she was like, why are you telling people I stole from Starbucks? I was like, I promise you Starbucks is not like reading my book, like we're good. So that's, but now that I'm working on my second book, I don't have that, like all of those things, all those veils that I can hide behind. Now I'm trying to like navigate what like other memoirists deal with, which is like, how do I write about my family? And my, I guess, short answer is, I feel like I just asked myself a question. My short answer is, don't. Yeah, don't write about your family. It's easier.
So who are some writers that you consider role models or mentors or simply favorites?
I feel like I have to give it to Janet Mock. She has two memoirs. One is called Redefining Realness, and one is called Surpassing Certainty. Most people know Janet Mock because she is one of the creators of the show Pose, and her memoirs are about growing up biracial in Hawaii, trans woman. And the reason that I really, really admired her work, especially when I was in college and then fresh out of college, was that her writing is, she's not afraid to be messy and like share her messiness. And I guess when I was writing, similar to you, where you're having to navigate, like, is this too much? Is it because it's gay? Is it because it's like a sex scene? I was also asking myself a lot of questions like, oh, is there gonna be an audience for this? Is it too messy? Should I, because there are so few queer Central American writers out here, like, do I represent us all? And then what are the pressures that come with that? And so I was like, oh, maybe I shouldn't be messy. Maybe I have to be like the perfect, like, queer Central American, like, specimen or whatever. And reading her book just like freed me of all of that, because I was like, no, all you have to do is tell the truth and tell a beautiful story. The rest is basically people trying to silence you. And yeah, so just ignore those other voices.
Yeah, I was asked a few months ago, and I was in a workshop situation. I was asked if I thought about the audience that I was hoping to reach, and my answer was no. I really don't think about audience. No. I just write the best story that I know how to write and make it as true as it can be, and it'll find an audience. I just trust that it'll end up in the right place.
Yeah. I mean, really, that's all we can do, right?
Right.
Just the trust exercise.
Yeah, write the best story you can. So what are you reading right now?
What am I just read your book. Before that, I read Detransition Baby by Tori Peters. Right now, I'm kind of like, I'm only wanting to read books by trans authors just because so many trans voices are being silenced right now, that I'm like, that's really all I care to read. So before that, I read a novel called Summer Fun by Jean Thornton, who went, oh my God, I can't speak, who won the Lambda Literary Fiction Prize this year. So those are the two most recent. I'm curious, who are you reading right now?
I just finished reading your book, and then I'm also reading a book called Blackbird House by Alice Hoffman. She wrote Practical Magic. Massachusetts writer, writes a lot of stories that have a lot of magical realism in them. Not crazy about this book, honestly, right now. Recently I read Eric Wen's Things We Lost to the Water, which is a wonderful book. He's a Vietnamese-American writer. It's about a woman who comes to New Orleans from Vietnam with her two children, but without her husband because he got somehow left behind. And it's told from three different points of view. Her, that's the mother, and then the two sons, one of whom is gay, and how they navigate their new life and new world starting in the late 70s and going up through Hurricane Katrina. That was quite a wonderful book.
I'm glad that you mentioned Alice Hoffman and Practical Magic, because this neighborhood is just like so Practical Magic. I guess I would want to know if, do you go through like phases of reading where you're like, I want to read more of this particular voice right now? And when you're writing, do you like to read stories that are similar to what you're writing? Or do you want to not get those voices in your head?
It depends. There are sometimes I want to read something really beautiful, that has just rip-roaringly beautiful language, because that's kind of what I'm wanting to write at the moment. But it's actually interesting, the things that influence my writing. For instance, politics. I love reading politics because a fiction writer has to get the facts across in a beautiful way, and a political writer has to get the facts across and keep your attention, with all these boring statistics and stuff, but still keep you compelled, and so, which is not that different from, I think, writing fiction. So I find that when I'm reading a lot of politics, it makes my fiction writing a little bit sharper.
Nice. Yeah. I feel like I'm always telling myself, like, oh, I'm watching a TV show. This is research. I'm like reading about. I'm like, this will make it into the book or something, but it's never that. I think I have one last question about your book. So one of my favorite stories. I'm glad that you read. It was your first selection. One of my favorite stories was about this character who works at a queer online magazine, and he's very insecure. I mean, that chapter ends with "I hate my body," because he doesn't feel like he meets traditional beauty standards, especially the beauty standards that the magazine perpetuates. So he is an older black man. He's also very like skinny, and yeah, he's very insecure about his body. And throughout the story, he is sort of he's ruminating on that, on his insecurities. And at the end, in the passage that you just read, so I don't want to give too many spoilers, but he goes on this date, and he actually ends up turning down the date. And that was something that really resonated with me. And I just love that complexity of him being both a victim of these beauty standards and also a perpetrator of them. Right. And there's just so many ways that we often do that without calling ourselves out, right? If it was a memoir, I would want him to reflect on him turning the guy down, but because it's fiction, I'm like, it's cool that it ends this way. But what it reminded me of is when I was younger, like 22, 23, I would date these guys that were like quote unquote masculine, while being more femme. I think at the time I had like bleach blonde hair, I was like doing my nails, and I would always be like, ugh, all of these guys are just like, their grinders say, you know, no fats, no femmes. And I would kind of be like judging them for that, while at the same time I would be like looking out for them. Like I would want these masculine dudes. And so I was similarly, felt like I was ostracized by those beauty standards, and I was perpetrating them myself because I wasn't like going out for other more effeminate guys. And in my book, I had to reflect on that and I had to be like, well, I guess the reason I was going after these masculine guys was because at 22, 23, I was really scared. I had a lot of shame, and they offered me like a form of protection. But yeah, I'm curious, with the chapter in your book, what was your thought process behind that twist at the end? What were you thinking about, and where did you get the idea for that?
Well, that story is based, especially that last scene, based very, very, very closely on an actual experience. So yeah, what I read, that was basically how it all turned out. So that's where the idea came from. And I, like many other gay men, have had body image issues, and because we're taught that you're supposed to look a certain way, and if you don't, that there's something wrong with you. So I think when you were going for the masculine guys, part of it was that's what you were taught. That's what we're all taught. That's the ideal. That's the epitome of attractiveness or whatever. So yeah, that's as far as the twist at the end. I mean, that was a real life twist. That story actually started off as a nonfiction essay. I was in graduate school. I took a nonfiction class, and that's where that essay came from. And then I decided, for whatever reasons, I'm not really interested in writing memoirs and essays, so I decided to kind of fiction it up a little bit. So I embroidered some things and turned it into a fiction piece instead. But as far as the twist at the end, I mean, I think that people are complicated, and we say we want this or we want that, and or we feel a certain way about things, and then when we're confronted with a similar situation, then all of a sudden we take on the attitude that's been used against us. Because I think that's human complexity.
Yeah. It's sad, but yeah, it's human. I wish more queer people did that self-interrogative work where they ask themselves, where do my desires come from? And in what ways do I use those desires to hurt others? Maybe unintentionally, but it's just something that happens.
Especially in the world of the apps.
Exactly.
That's very much amplified. I mean, it happens, outside the apps too, but with the apps, it seems like it's very much, you get a lot more of it.
Yeah. I mean, I have so many friends, well, not so much anymore, but I've had a lot of friends in the past be like, for example, on Grindr, be like, oh my God, all of these guys are ignoring me, nobody messages me, or nobody wants me, oh, I can never get a boyfriend, et cetera, et cetera. And I always want to be like, well, you should actually open your Grindr and see the messages that you're getting and the taps that you're getting, because I bet you are actually getting messages and you are just ignoring those people. And so for you to be like, oh, I'm such a victim, while being the perpetrator of the same thing, it's just an irony that we all need to investigate within ourselves. Yeah.
Right. I agree.
Okay, should we open it up for Q&A?
Does anyone in the audience have any questions for either of us? Nan.
Hey, I want to know how you learned to sing. Is that something that you just said is that a sideline that you just brought to this work?
Well, I used to be an actor. Never really much of a singer, but I used to be an actor. So I love to. My boyfriend will tell you I love to sing in the house, in the shower, and so I have a huge love for blues and jazz of that era. So that's where that comes from.
Good job.
Thank you. Yes.
So it's a little embarrassing to admit, but one of my guilty pleasures growing up was there was this one website called nifty.org, which maybe some of you know. So it's mostly LGBT fiction. I think there's nonfiction too, but mostly short stories. Just out of curiosity, did you guys know about that, or were you ever influenced by that, or did you ever hear of it until now?
Never heard of it. No.
Nifty. No, I'd never heard of Nifty. You know what I did love? I used to read Craigslist ads, and that was similar. I guess there were short stories. Personal ads, I mean. That was my Nifty.
I'm just curious whether each of you is thinking about switching genres. So whether you're going to go to nonfiction and Edgar, whether you're looking at a novel, or you think of yourself now as a memoirist. That's the word.
I mean, I would love to write fiction someday, but right now I feel more of an urgent pull towards memoir. And also, I don't think that I'm a good fiction writer. I know I shouldn't say that. But every time I try to invent something, it's just ridiculous. Or I will start a short story, and by the time I'm done, I'll realize that it's just actually something that really happened. And so I'm like, what am I doing? So yeah.
Same answer. I don't have any plans to go to memoir. Writing nonfiction doesn't interest me. For whatever reasons, it just doesn't. I feel like I should be writing essays in addition to my fiction, but that's something that maybe I'll do one day, but I don't feel an urgency for it.
Yeah. Honestly, don't come over here. It sucks. And I get so exhausted with myself. I'm like, why am I thinking about myself for just hours a day? It's not okay. I need help. And then I started asking myself, especially in the pandemic, when it first began, I was having all of these existential questions where I was like, why am I wasting my life writing about my life? And I still don't have a good answer for that. Except that writing about my life has enriched my life.
Therapy.
Do you feel like writing about your life will help some of the younger people when they're going through things? They'll have something to identify with and help them out?
Yes, I hope so. That is one of the, in my fantasy world, as I was writing, I was like, what if one day this book finds its hands on a 13-year-old queer kid like me at the time, who really, really needed to see my story be told and my experiences be reflected back at me. I think one of the reasons that I felt like such a quote-unquote freak in high school was that there weren't many other people to tell me that what I was going through was, I guess, normal for who I was. I was also watching a lot of shows, like the queer media that was around back then. It was like Queer as Folk and the L Word, and I'm not like casting judgment on these shows, but it was just like completely like different to my experiences. And so I was like, I almost felt, because those were some of the few pieces of queer media out there, it almost made me feel worse, because I was like, oh my God, I'm not even like these people. Like, I'm not even a good gay person. And so, yeah, my hope is, I guess, just to expand the world of possibility for another queer kid, for what a queer life can be. Yeah.
Joe, I'm wondering, what's the relationship for you between your personal creative work and your editorial work as a publisher, with working to publish, best gay fiction, best gay stories, and how is the dynamic there for you?
Well, writing is basically rewriting. So when I'm writing, I'm editing all the time anyway. So I think that's where it exists, and I think I have a pretty good eye for for language and structure. Those are things I'm always obviously thinking about as a writer when I'm writing my own stories, and I think I have a good eye for looking at someone else's story and seeing what's working, what's not working, what could be better. And in that way, I think probably the editing, well, they probably enhance each other. The experience as a writer enhances what I can do as an editor, and vice versa. Let's see.
I have the same question, so I'm going to ask a follow-up if I may. Do you find any need to isolate your own work or buffer yourself in any way from the other works that you're editing, or does it all sort of just take care of itself?
I think for me it takes care of itself. Yeah, I don't feel like one necessarily has to be protected from the other. No, it's kind of siloed in a sense.
So I've worked as an editor a couple of times, and I feel like it's complicated for like my relationship to being an editor and a writer, because when you're an editor, you get like hundreds of submissions, right? And a lot of them aren't very good. And so in that way, when I'm reading them, I'm like, oh my God, maybe I'm a good writer. Like, all these stories are kind of bad. But then I sort of go really easy on myself in my own work, because I'm like, well, all of these stories were like not that great. I guess when my work is like not that good, I'm like, oh, I guess it is good. And that's like kind of a negative influence.
Well, I find that when you're reading submissions, you get a very good idea of what not to do. You learn a lot from people's mistakes.
Yeah. So. And you become very familiar with like all of the tropes, all of the stories that are just like, I think a story can be retold, but all of the just like all the cliches, all of those things, yeah.
Joe, you raised a question about a writing mentor, and I'm wondering if you had one, and if they left an imprint in your work that like persists today.
I don't have one. I've never had a person who's been there and said, okay, Joe, do this, or let's work on that. And that's something I wish that I had, or wish that I did have. That's not something I mean, there are people who have, writers who have influenced me, like for instance, James Baldwin, Toni Morrison. They've been hugely influential in my work. But a live person who's, working with me personally, I've never had that. And I've always wondered if I've missed out, because I haven't had that.
Because of your background as being an actor and your voice, have you ever considered doing a play? Writing a play?
Yes, I used to write plays, but that's a whole other ball game. And also getting one produced. I think it's probably more difficult to get a play produced than it is to get a short story published or even a novel published. That's not a hassle that I ever want to deal with. Having to do all that workshopping and changing it constantly after every performance, during previews. No, thank you.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite things about writing, that it's free.
Anyone else? Yes, Doug.
So have either of you been made aware or experienced either of your works or any of your works being banned?
Not that I'm aware. I mean, as far as I'm aware, my works have not been, I've not heard anything from a library or a PTA saying your book has been banned. How about you?
I mean,
with a title like High Risk Homosexual.
Yeah, I'm kind of disappointed. I'm like, ban me.
Be more of a red flag.
Yeah, it would be really good marketing for me to be banned. But I think I almost, with this title, I feel like I banned myself a little bit, in that I know that there's gonna be some queer people who are like, oh, it says homosexual on the title. If I read this in public, I'm kind of outing myself. I know that a lot of straight people won't pick it up for the title. They might not say that like out loud, but they don't want to be caught reading a book that says homosexual. And so I think in that way I kind of ban myself, But I think the title attracts the people that I'm more interested in anyway. So.
There you go. Any other questions?
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.